Today's guest is a WEHC analyst, Daron Vaught. And Daron, we've actually gotten the chance to work together on several occasions for WEHC in the sports season. But now it's time for March Madness. And not school-related at all, but March Madness seems to be growing in the national stage. And people are doing it both in office pools and in schools for money. But there's another side to it as well, and people get paid big bucks to talk bracketology. So it's good to have you on the show today. We're going to be talking March Madness.
Well, I'm not quite getting paid the big bucks that you're talking about, but I'm enjoying being here so far, and I appreciate you having me on.
First of all, for those of us who don't understand the criteria for getting into the NCAA tournament, if you would tell us how the tournament selection committee makes the decision on how to admit teams to the NCAA tournament.
Well, Chris, there are obviously the automatic bids. Automatic bids consist of the 31 automatic based on conference tournament winners. That's based on no prior record as far as the regular season is concerned. If you win your tournament, you could be the very last seed. If you win, you're in the tournament. Then the 34 bids are at large, what we call at large bids, and those are for the teams that the committee feels deserving that did not quite win their conference tournaments.
Right, and winning the conference tournament can be a hard task to do. So it's good that you have those 34 automatic bids. And 34 versus 33, a lot of people think that there are 64 teams in the NCAA tournament, but there are actually 65 because there's a play-in game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And especially, like you said, it's very tough to win a conference tournament, especially with conferences like the ACC and the Big East that are so deep and so great up at the top, near the top of the conference.
And there are 31 conferences that coincide with those 31 automatic bids. But for the teams that don't win the conference tournaments and they have to get the at-large bid to get the go-ahead, what do they use to determine whether or not this team deserves to be in? How do they judge these teams on an at-large basis?
You've got your situational things every year. It will vary. The committee will their opinions are very erratic. They jump around a lot. But strength of schedule has always been a good one. Strength of conference, obviously, if you're playing good teams in your conference schedule and you're winning or playing tough against good teams.
Of course, they don't want to admit that the strength of the conference makes a difference, but it does.
But it does. It absolutely does. Key wins, your biggest wins of the season. Obviously, for a team approaching the bubble like Michigan, they near the beginning of the season they had in the span of 1 week. They defeated the Duke Blue Devils and the UCLA Bruins.
And they got Michigan State on there, I think, as well.
Yeah, so, those will definitely make a good case for them getting into the tournament. Key losses, obviously, if you're a big team and you lose a couple to some shabbier opponents, then, they might seed you a little higher.
Yeah, the bad losses are the ones that sometimes keep you out. Also, one of the things that a lot of college coaches argue against is the ratings percentage index, also known as the RPI. And that one is 25% your record, 25% your opponent's record, and 50% your opponent's record. And that one is a little bit abstract, but it seems to be the one that, by and large, the pundits use and the selection committee takes a look at when they admit teams.
A lot of coaches and players around the NCAA will disagree with that, but I think overall it's a good standard because we were talking earlier with teams like Louisiana State in the very, very weak SEC this year. They're obviously one of the top dogs in that conference, but their RPI is somewhere up in the 60s, which is equivalent to a lot of the teams that are on the bubble.
Smaller conference teams, yeah.
Yeah, smaller conference teams. Even like 5th, 6th, 7th place teams in the ACC and Big East have better RPIs than that.
Also, you look at wins against the top 150 and 25, and you mentioned RPI is a good way to rate teams that have been in the top 100 or even past that, because the top 25 only pertains to those 25 teams sitting at the very top. So you've got a ranking all the way from 26 to 300 and however many Division I teams there are. If you could talk a little bit about how the RPI helps the teams at the end, because you've got a better scale to be able to rate them on.
Yeah, well, it definitely helps out because without it, as you said, there would be no way to distinguish between a number 32 team in the nation and a number 210 team in the nation. It obviously helps out especially where opponents' records is incorporated. Your bigger conference teams that are near the bottom, they can compete with a mid-major that is absolutely running away with their conference. Their bad conference. So.
Right, and tough conferences, being at the bottom, there's no shame in that sometimes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not.
So the RPI is accurate from that standpoint. And one of the things that we want to address here when we have you here is the teams that are in, the teams that are on the bubble, the teams that are out, and who are the contenders? So who are some of the people that you think, what teams do you think have a legitimate chance of taking it all at the end of, or actually it's the beginning of April, so that's really mad about March Madness. It starts in March and ends in April.
Yeah. Obviously, Connecticut is a big favorite towards the beginning of the year. I think the loss of Dyson at the point guard position was huge for them, so I really don't see them going all the way without the help of Dyson. I like Oklahoma. Since the beginning of the year, I've been a big fan of Oklahoma. Blake Griffin is, without a doubt in my mind, the most incredible athlete in Division I basketball right now. He's going to be a great NBA player, I think, and alongside his brother and just a very deep team, which people don't really know that well. They're a very deep team, very solid from top to bottom. I like them a lot.
And you mentioned mid-majors. Real quick before we run out of time, who's a dark horse that you like in the NCAA tournament this year? I
like the Dayton Flyers. They work hard. They hustle. That's what I love about them. They have such a passion for the game. They've got a few good scores. They've got a couple solid. They've got good role players. I think they've got somebody doing everything at all times, and that makes them a complete team. It's really what you need down the stretch.
And the Atlantic 10 Conference, not one to sleep on either.
No, absolutely not. No, not with George Mason, especially.
Sort of
they're known for it. So.